the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Let's go to Ben from Minnesota. Are you with us, Ben? What can I do for you?
As a Catholic, how do I understand what it means to be saved by works or by faith? I mean, I want to believe.
Oh, dear. St. Paul says it is clear that we are not saved by works of the law, but by grace. The phrase works of the law appears in two places, the writings of St. Paul and in the Qumran documents. And there is a scroll called Some Works of the Law. If a dead rodent falls into a clay pot, the pot must be broken. It cannot be purified. However, if you are pouring water from a clay pitcher, can the uncleanness of the bowl, because of the dead rodent, go up the stream of water and pollute the pitcher? The Qumran loonies said yes. The Pharisees said no. And Jesus and Paul said, who cares? Get a life. And this is a work of the law. When St. Paul says we are not saved by works of the law, he's saying we're not saved by the minutiae of the Torah. You know, not eating pork, not touching dead rodents, that sort of thing. We're saved by grace through faith. We Catholics believe it. Grace is what God gives us in 24 hours a day to conform us to the image of Christ. And we accept it with faith. That is with trust. That's what the word faith means, trust. The difficult circumstances of our life come to us as gifts from God to conform us to the image of Christ. And I can say no to grace. That's where the Reformers disagreed with Catholics. They said, you can't say no to God's grace. God's grace will overpower you. We don't believe that. St. John says he gave them grace upon grace. In other words, God calls you, gives you a grace to do something, and you say, yes, I will do it. He gives you a greater grace. And you say yes to that, God gives you a greater grace. If you say no to grace at any point, the Lord says, well, okay, you don't want to follow? You don't have to. We're saved by grace through faith. In other words, what God gives in 24 hours a day to conform us to the image of Christ is grace. It's his gift. And we accept it through trust. Does that help?
It says in James that a faith without works is a dead faith.
It's dead,
how do you counteract?
Yes, because if I say I have faith, I trust God, but I'm going to go shoot somebody, I'm not trusting God. You see, if you understand the word faith means trust. I believe means I trust. Believe and faith, the Greek word means trust. And if I'm trusting God, I'm going to obey him. He says, give to the poor. I'll trust him. I don't think I have enough money for me, but God said, give to the poor. I'll trust him. You see, we're saved by God's gift, and we receive that gift of God by trusting him. And the commandments, the 10 commandments, are gifts. They are grace. God tells us, don't commit adultery. It's not going to work out for you. Say, Jesus, I trust you. I'm not going to commit adultery. I'm going to be faithful to my wife. Does that help?
Yeah. I guess there's this notion that I have to, prove myself to God, prove myself worthy of salvation. What do you think of that?
No, you don't prove yourself worthy of salvation. You're not worthy of salvation. What you do is give God permission to make you look like Jesus, the obedient Son of God. And how do you look like Jesus? By obeying. Son though he was, he learned obedience through what he suffered. The hallmark of Jesus' personality was his obedience to the Father. That's what grace works in us. God's gift to us are those circumstances which allow us to trust God. You can join me and listen on the Relevant Radio app to Father Simon Says live each weekday at 1 o'clock Central. And thanks for listening.